Welcome to this explainer. Today we're unpacking the architecture of corporate power to discover why ethics are the absolute bedrock of any successful business. Have you ever wondered what holds a massive multinational corporation together? Or maybe more interestingly, what makes it spectacularly fall apart? Well, it all comes down to governance structure, literally built on a foundation of ethics.
Let's dive right in with a massive question that cuts straight to the heart of corporate accountability. When a huge firm acts unethically, think of those crazy accounting scandals we've all seen plastered on the news, who is actually to blame? Is it a rogue employee, a greedy executive, or the board of directors who are supposedly watching them? The answer really lies in how the organization is built.
To demystify this, we're going to use an architectural blueprint to build our understanding step by step, from the ground up. We'll start with the foundation of ethics, move on to defining corporate governance, explore the three principal players, check out the board's strategic role, and wrap up with global governance systems.
All right, part one, the foundation of ethics, the bedrock of business. Okay, so before we build anything, we've got to pour our foundation, right? And in business, we have to start with ethics, because without moral integrity, the entire corporate structure eventually just collapses under its own weight. Before a company even thinks about managing resources, it has to establish a common frame of reference for what's morally acceptable. Ethical decisions prioritize what is right, fair, and good over just, pure economics. A company might have a killer strategy to maximize profits, but if that strategy crosses ethical lines, your foundation is inherently cracked.
So, what actually makes up this concrete foundation? It really comes down to three vital pillars. First, justice, which is simply about treating people fairly. Second, beneficence, which means actively caring for others and preventing harm. And third, fidelity, which is all about inspiring absolute trust and loyalty. Ensuring that a company's strategic initiatives don't become totally disconnected from this moral reality, that is what keeps the organization ethically sound.
Moving on to part two, defining corporate governance, the building code.
With our foundation poured and set, we move to the structural framework. Think of it as our building code. Now, the Latin root of governance is gubernare, which literally translates to steer, kind of like steering a massive cargo ship. And the traditional Cadbury report definition captures this perfectly. It says corporate governance is the system of rules, practices, and checks and balances by which a business is steered, directed, and controlled.
And looking at this visual, you can see how this architectural metaphor perfectly shows us exactly what's holding the roof up. Good corporate governance is essentially a temple, resting on three massive pillars: transparency of operations, accountability towards shareholders, and fairness in dealings. If just one of these pillars gets weak, the whole structure is absolutely at risk of crumbling down.
Which brings us to part three, the three principal players, the load-bearing pillars.
Just like a physical building needs load-bearing pillars to stay upright, every major corporation has three principal players interacting to distribute power. You've got the shareholders who actually own it, the board of directors providing oversight, and management who execute the daily strategy. It's the relationship and that vital system of checks and balances among these three specific groups that ultimately determines the firm's direction.
Now, this distinction right here, this is a massive aha moment in corporate governance. Executives and management are responsible for doing the actual day-to-day work. But if the strategy completely fails, the ultimate accountability falls squarely on the board of directors. Why? Because the board chose the management. So at the end of the day, they are the ones who have to answer to the shareholders for the outcome.
Let's zoom in on that in part four, the board's strategic role, the roof, and oversight.
Let's look closer at that board of directors. They act as that critical roof, protecting the entire house from internal storms. And their obligations? They are immense. We're talking about hiring and firing the CEO, setting the corporate direction, and making sure the financial reporting is perfectly accurate. But crucially, they absolutely must prevent executive self-dealing, which is when managers use the firm for personal gain. A good board can never just rubber stamp an imperial CEO. They have to act as the ultimate critical check on power.
Ultimately, a strong, independent board is literally the only guard against managers treating the company like their own personal piggy bank. As this framework reminds us, governance exists to encourage the efficient use of resources, but equally to demand accountability for the stewardship of those resources. It ensures the whole corporate structure is actually working for the benefit of the shareholders, not just lining executive pockets.
Finally, part 5,
global governance systems, adapting to the environment.
Okay, so when we step outside our constructed building, we see how external environmental factors completely change the rules of the game. Globally, we generally see two starkly contrasting systems, rule-based and relationship-based. Rule-based systems, which are super common in developed nations, rely on transparent, public information and verifiable regulations. But relationship-based systems, which are very frequent in developing nations, rely heavily on non-transparent, private personal networks and family control.
Now here's where it gets really fascinating. In a relationship-based system, what you know is often way less important than who you know. Because this system relies on high entry barriers and personal trust built up over decades, it can honestly appear totally corrupt or unethical to outsiders coming from rule-based environments. It perfectly demonstrates how governance adapts to its local culture. What's just standard operating procedure in one system might be viewed as a massive ethical violation in another.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want you to take a second and critically assess your own organization's architecture. Is it genuinely built to withstand an ethical earthquake? Or is it just the illusion of compliance? Understanding the intricate links between ethics, the board, and management is really the only way to ensure your corporate building stands the test of time. So I'll leave you with this. What's holding your roof up?